Why is Chris Cuomo still every story, Glenn, talking about Donald Trump? Every single story. He must have gone 7 or 8 stories. All of them Donald Trump. The man is not the president of the United States. His political party has no power in Washington. None. And 8 straight stories to start your show about Donald Trump and what he did or is doing.
This is why I didn't let Stu talk about Chris Cuomo until the very end of the show, because he's irrelevant. Chris Cuomo is irrelevant. There are like 4 people watching him. However, on the other side, NPR now is saying that The Blaze, Breitbart, and the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, he's evil, you know. That we've all gotten together, and now we are duping the American public because they don't know we're conservatives. And we're starting to become such an influence that we are dwarfing the things like the New York Times or NBC. We're dwarfing them online. Well, that's got to stop. Ben Shapiro stops by to talk about that and so much more. You don't want to miss a second of today's podcast.
You're listening to the best of the Glenn Beck program.
So how much does the shirt that Sarah is wearing cost? She's wearing a Peloton t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And I know what Pelotons cost, and they are stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Stupid expensive.
Well, and then they add on the monthly fee, which is, all right, I've just spent multiple thousands of dollars here. Are you really going to charge me $60 a month or whatever it is so I can stream classes? We all know YouTube is free, guys. Like, come on. Really? You're going to do that? And of course they are. And it works. And they're all millionaires. And soon they're all going to be building their own rocket ships.
We're going to be the only ones without a rocket ship.
We're the only one without a rocket ship.
Yeah.
Now. It's just sad.
Which is funny, because the story you always tell to new employees about me is don't start building a rocket ship.
Right.
Glenn will say, maybe we should all go to the moon. Mm-hmm. And he'll change his mind. And so don't start. We all have multiple unfinished rocket ships in our backyard.
Yes.
That's what Stu always tells people.
It's important to know when you need to build the rocket ship.
Soon.
Important.
I think it's coming soon. So seriously, do you get a free t-shirt when you buy the $5,000 treadmill or whatever it is?
No, you get 100 classes or 100 bike rides gets you a free t-shirt.
100 bike rides get you a free Peloton t-shirt.
Now, to be clear, you have to buy the bike and pay the monthly fee and do 100 classes to get the t-shirt.
So not free.
Right.
It's definitely not free.
I could print one that looks exactly like that and sell it to you for $20. Where that t-shirt probably cost you close to $6,000.
Well, the funny thing is too, it's like a $3,000 or $4,000 bike. It's $60 a month or whatever it is for eternity. And the worst part about getting that t-shirt is doing 100 classes. To me, like the thing I want to do least is actually do the biking.
I don't want to be on it.
I don't want to cycle.
No.
But that's why we look like we do.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. My wife just got a Pilates machine. It's coming.
What is a Pilates machine?
I have no idea. It looks like a medieval torture thing. It does. It's like, and she's like, "You're doing Pilates," and I'm like, "I'm not doing Pilates."
Oh, you should definitely live stream that on Instagram. You should.
I'm going to wear. You know what'll make it? You know what'll make it stop? My wife saying you got to do Pilates is if I start wearing a leotard, and I'm going to.
You keep threatening these things. I think you just like wearing leotards.
No, I've never worn a leotard. I just know what I would look like in a leotard. It would not be good.
No.
It would not be good. It wouldn't exactly be a night at the ballet.
Agreed. And she would not want it to be publicly posted, so she would allow you to get out of exercise.
She would be like, no, I can't. No, you can't.
Internet's down, whole world.
Yeah, whole world is down. People are trapped in their house, Glenn. It's not good. Don't do that to them. And I'm like, I'm not doing that to them. This is just like the way I like to exercise on my new Pilates machine. What the hell is Pilates?
I mean, it's just like yoga, only it's strengthening and flexibility, and it's supposed to make you leaner and taller, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Being strong and flexible, that just
like
screams Glenn
yoga.
Beck, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's like yoga. I've done yoga before. Have you ever done yoga?
No.
Yeah, I've done yoga before. It's the most intense, like, I don't know. You're like, do the gladfish or
downward dog,
whatever, and do it for 20 minutes, and it is so strenuous. At the same time, it is so relaxing. I fell asleep. It's the only. I was going for it, and then and the yoga instructor said, "Mr. Beck, are you sleeping?" I'm like, I'm sorry. This is really good. I mean, it's strenuous, but I'm so relaxed. I'm so relaxed. It's time for a nap. So you should leave now. And they did, and they never came back. Points for me.
Yeah.
Points for me.
Did you do that in a leotard?
No, I didn't do that in a leotard. That's when I could have worn a leotard. Now I'm only threatening it because, whoa, no one wants to see me in that. So do I look like a Pilates guy? I mean, not look like it, but do I look like... Because this is the one my wife says, you will really like that. Because I've tried all of it. I hate all of it.
And when all of it,
all
you
of
mean
it.
exercise?
I mean walking. I mean to the refrigerator. I hate it all.
You've got the Wall-E lifestyle. It's the one you want, right? Like, isn't that...
No, actually, you know what I really would like, except now you would have to be running because of all of the people that are trying to kill you and stab you. My best exercise was walking in the streets of New York. And remember, I mean, nobody could keep up with me. I'm a fast walker, and I was in shape because I would walk a lot in New York City because I liked it. Because every time you'd see something new.
The good thing, too, there's a lot of... trying to escape threats because everybody walking on the street wanted to kill you.
Yes.
So
it had, I mean, my adrenaline was going. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. And I really liked it. But there's no place else like New York City. You walk, it's like, let's go for a walk in the neighborhood. I've seen it. Nothing's changed. Maybe Bob has the station wagon out in front of the house instead of in the garage this time. I mean, I just get bored so fast.
Yeah, it's so boring. Like, there's no homeless vomit anywhere in your neighborhood. That's
None.
terrible.
There's no needles to avoid.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're exercising, let's say in New York or San Francisco, you have to. You're always seeing there's a new poop on the street.
Yeah,
a new needle over
it.
here. Somebody trying to urinate on you. 5 yards ahead.
I've heard right now New York and San Francisco are great for exercise because you're constantly fleeing violent attacks.
Yeah, it's great.
So, and there's
really
no
good.
cops around because they've banned them all. So it's really great. It's a great way to get your heart rate up.
And I can get the I Heart New York T-shirt for less than you paid for the Peloton T-shirt. So I like that. Last night I watched the special we were talking about with Bo Burnham. I watched it with my daughter, Hannah, my second oldest.
Yeah, if you missed the conversation yesterday, this guy a comedian, sort of, who was pretty well known for Netflix specials and stuff, gave up on comedy like 5 years ago because he had really extreme anxiety, was about to come back and start performing in January 2020, and then as he tells it, the funniest thing happened. And he did an entire comedy special from inside one room of his house over quarantine. I think he was in LA. I'm not sure. Not sure, but either way, he was locked down, I guess, for basically a whole year. So it took a whole year to do the special. Just him with a camera in one room. It really is an amazing piece of work.
I've never seen I watched this a second time I've watched it, and I've never seen anything like it. And I think what's so frightening about it. It's very funny, and at the beginning, I'm just warning. It's very offensive in its language.
It's a comedy special on Netflix, though.
Yeah,
Probably
it's a comedy.
expected for most people.
Correct. But it is, and it's kind of light and trivial at the beginning. But it took him a year locked in his house, and the guy is unstable. And it's almost like watching a real Truman Show, except he knows he's trapped. You know what I mean? It's the closest thing. I was watching it last night. I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. And then I thought, it's kind of like the Truman Show, where the guy is trapped in this weird situation, this make-believe situation, and we're just watching him really deteriorate. He is mentally fragile, I would say. He's a genius. You are watching a genius. I think this guy is the most gifted and one of the smartest guys I have ever seen in performance. I mean, it's performance art. You've never seen anything like this before. But when it hits intermission, about halfway through, he realizes that COVID and the isolation is going to keep going. At the beginning of the video, it's kind of light because he's like, it's going to be over soon. And then 6 months into it, he's still making the video, and he's realizing, are we ever going to leave lockdown? But especially in the second half, his discoveries of what's real and what's not are phenomenal. I so want to play some of the stuff on the air, because the commentary about where we are, you're watching this guy in one of the most real performances you've ever seen. And while he has kind of a breakdown on screen, I don't think that that's the real breakdown. I think that is him reenacting the breakdown. But the breakdown, is real. And he is coming to the understanding that the internet and what's going on in the world right now is blowing us apart. And he's just so clear while he is losing his mind. He's so clear on what the problems are. And I doubt we agree on things, except the diagnosis of the problem. And he has one song. I just want to play a little bit of it. This is towards the end, and let me play the beginning of it. It's really remarkable. His music is beautiful, but then he's saying goodbye. I'll meet you outside. I'll meet you on the street, but we're never coming back. We're never coming back together. I'll be on the other side of the street. Did I say that right? It is such a brilliant piece of work. And last night when I was watching it, I was overwhelmed with the feeling that it was almost like dropping a pin. You know when you drop a pin on a map, on the timeline. This guy, I mean, in that song it talks about, you say it's ending, but it's already over, and nothing you can do to change it. And it is such a weird, dystopian almost piece, but it's real. And I felt like it was dropping a pin in the timeline. I feel like this special it would be or should be looked at possibly in the future as the first real sign in mass culture that the collective knew. And because I said to my daughter about halfway through, I said, what do you think of this? She said, well, it's funny, but it's all true. And I said, yeah, I know. And it's not true because it's Marxist or anti-Marxist or anything like that. It's true in its feeling. This guy is so wide open to feelings. And he knows he's got the collective zeitgeist nailed, unlike anything I've ever seen. His name is Bo Burnham, and it is it's a special called Inside, and you can find it on Netflix. It is just warning if you are somebody that is offended by language, and it is very edgy for anybody who is not used to the culture as it is today. But it is, watch it all the way through. It's absolutely brilliant. And as Bonhoeffer said, not to speak is to speak, not to stand is to stand. God will not hold us blameless. And I've always said that's so true because there's no excuse. We all know. And I think this special points out, we all know. We all know what's coming.
You're listening to the best of the Glenn Beck program.
Mr. Ben Shapiro, welcome.
How you doing?
Well, I found something out, and I don't think this is true. You would have said something about it, but I don't want to ambush you here. But I've heard that you're Jewish. Is that true?
Well, I can't believe you can't believe everything you hear.
Look at how he's stumbling around this. I think he's Jewish. Holy cow, Ben! It's out now. I mean, you might as well live with it. I just thought you always wore.
Next, you'll be telling people. Next, you'll be telling people that I can control a space laser and.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know.
I heard.
We don't talk about these things.
I swear to you, you told me that little hat you wore was just too small. It was a cap that you had as a kid, and it was too small. And I believed it. It's okay. Well, Ben, we'll get.
I tried to keep it going as long as I could, Glenn.
Gosh, you know what, Ben? It is what's going on now is as insane as what I just said to you. It's just insane what the mainstream media is now trying to portray. There was a great article. Congratulations on the article from NPR. A great article where they have deemed that you are a great danger now because of what you're building over at the Daily Wire. And they point to you and to us and to Breitbart. And they say that you are affecting millions of people and they don't know that you're a conservative. They have no idea that the Daily Wire is really a conservative outlet. How can they possibly say something like it's marked at the bottom of every single page of every article? How can they possibly say that? It's insanity.
I mean, it is crazy, but it's perfectly predictable because right now when you watch Joe Biden and the New York Times and the entire media and democratic infrastructure combine to basically say that social media is the problem and needs to be reined in and that social media needs to, quote unquote, cut out misinformation. By misinformation, they don't actually mean things that are wrong. They just mean stuff they don't like.
Yes.
It's not anything of a surprise. They've been doing this since 2016. So before 2016, I know everybody has a short memory. Before 2016, everybody in the media loved Facebook, right? Because Facebook was the place where Barack Obama won the 2012 election. Mm-hmm. Facebook was he had figured out these brilliant strategies. Then Trump wins in 2016, and they've got to find some rationale for why Hillary Clinton, the worst candidate in American history, lost. And it can't be that she's the worst candidate, because that would mean she was the worst candidate. It's got to be something else. And so what they come up with is it's Facebook. Facebook allowed Russian dissemination of disinformation. Facebook allowed dissemination of disinformation via the Trump campaign and all this. Now, there was a subtle shift that happened here where the critique went from Russian disinformation, which would be, that actually has a definition. That would be active foreign intervention in an American election via false propaganda, to misinformation, right? They shifted from disinformation, which could be targeted, to misinformation, which now includes anything they don't like.
Correct.
So they will just scrub the Hunter Biden article because that is quote-unquote misinformation, even though it's true. And in this NPR article, they ripped Daily Wire not because we report things that aren't true. They admit in the article that we don't report things that aren't true. They quote some sort of quote-unquote expert, professor at an Ivy League university, saying that any true fact, quote-unquote stripped of context, can become misinformation. Which is to say that if you're conservative and you give context for information in a way that leftists don't like, this now constitutes misinformation. And that's what this entire campaign is about. There's this extraordinarily perverse thing that has happened with regard to how we consume information in the United States. It used to be that you would bookmark a place like Daily Wire or The Blaze and you go directly there. And then because social media is so convenient, people get Daily Wire or The Blaze or Breitbart from their newsfeed on Facebook. And the left noticed that all of the dissemination of information was now centralized in one place. And then they said, okay, well, what if we just now bottleneck that? What if we just strangle in the crib all of these conservative organizations by telling the disseminator of information to just cut off the faucet? And that's what NPR is doing right now. They're trying to reestablish an establishment media monopoly with the help of the Democratic Party. And apparently your taxpayer dollars is NPR. They're trying to do all of that by basically pressuring Facebook into preventing anything they don't like from ever seeing the light of day.
It would be bad if it was coming from the New York Times, but it's coming from NPR. That is an arm of the U.S. government. I mean, that is paid for by the U.S. government. Our tax dollars go to pay for NPR. And it is probably the closest we have to an actual state media outlet. And with everything that the White House has been saying about, we're flagging and, we're hoping that Facebook is going to stop these people who are killing people with their misinformation. They have said this about almost everything. The latest is just COVID. Everything that the right or that liberty lovers or constitutionalists have been talking about, every time since 2008, they have been saying that that's going to get somebody killed. We're just fomenting a revolution or whatever. This is the open door to the end of the First Amendment, and I don't see anybody in outside of conservative circles really talking about this and taking this seriously. This is really dangerous.
Oh, it's super dangerous. And if it were Trump doing it, that this would be an assault on the press. Trump said a mean thing about someone from the press, and it was like, wow, the First Amendment under attack. Now you have the White House deliberately saying that social media should shut down things the White House doesn't like, and the entire press is sucking its thumb in the corner or cheering it on. I mean, there's an article from Kara Swisher, who's just terrible, in the New York Times, and she's been basically every article she writes is about why Facebook should do what she wants Facebook to do. And she had an article about Biden's comments the other day where he said that Facebook was killing people, which, again, is absurd. First of all, it assumes that human beings don't have agency and can't actually do risk assessment for themselves and take a look at the facts themselves. Number two, it assumes that Facebook is purposefully disseminating false information about COVID, which is just a lie. It assumes that they are, in fact, a publisher, not a platform, which is kind of hilarious since the entire leftist support for Facebook is rooted in Section 230, which suggests they're a platform, not a publisher. So she writes in this piece, backing Joe Biden, saying that Facebook is killing people, quote, attempting to stop falsehoods by claiming to offer good information is like using a single sandbag to hold back an impossibly fetid ocean. It's like that when it comes to a range of once anodyne, now divisive issues, from election integrity to critical race theory to whatever, keeping this country in a constant state of twitchy confusion. So now she's giving away the ball game there, right? The idea here is not that the Democrats care about cutting down on quote-unquote COVID misinformation. If they wanted to cut down on COVID misinformation, perhaps they should stop Dr. Fauci from talking, since he's now reversed himself on every major position he ever held, from masking to the efficacy of vaccines without masks to school reopening. But put that aside, she's now broadened it out from COVID to everything. She literally says everything, right? That Facebook should police all the things, because Otherwise, people could tell lies about things like critical race theory. And by lies, she means the truth, because she's a believer in critical race theory,
Right.
as most of the members of the left-wing New York Times editorial board are. So it is the great danger to the country that the informational distribution mechanisms are now being leveraged into top-down control by Democrats. Now, listen, I don't think that the heads of Facebook, particularly Zuckerberg, have a congenital interest in doing this, but I also don't know that they have the stones to actually stand up to this effort for long periods of time, which is why I've called on people who listen to my show and people who read Daily Wire to subscribe to Daily Wire and subscribe to The Blaze and subscribe to Fox Nation or anywhere else they get their
Likewise.
conservative news, because
Yep.
pretty soon it's going to be the model for informational distribution is going to be completely revised by an authoritarian left.
So the arrogance is usually where people they overplay their hand. The left overplays their hand all the time. But I feel like they've overplayed their hand for 10 years now, and it doesn't seem to be an overplaying. How do you see this changing at all, Ben? Where are we on this timeline of losing freedom?
So I think that I really believe the future of the country and the only possibility that we stay together as a country is going to not be because of anything we, the conservatives, do, or even anything the radical left does. It's going to be the people in the middle. Do the people in the middle decide that they are going to stand up to this stuff, or do they just go with whoever is the loudest voice and just appease that loud voice? And that includes people who are sort of the moderate liberals. You remember there's that Harper's Weekly letter last year where 150 liberals wrote this piece about how cancel culture was bad. They had their obligatory kind of slaps at Trump, but then they did the cancel culture is bad routine. And the question for them is, are you just trying to keep the Overton window open for yourself, or are you willing to expand that to people who don't actually agree with you? Because if it's only the former, the country's not going to survive. If you say, listen, we, the liberal side, we may agree with leftists on a lot of their utopian goals, but we are not willing to shut down conversation, destroy individual rights, shut down the First Amendment in order to achieve those goals. So maybe we'll get to utopia later, but at least we won't have destroyed the country. If they do that, the country can survive. If they decide to move along with the left because the left has some of the same political priorities, then we will fall apart as a country, because there is no way that the right is just going to sit still for this.
And with everything that is going on, I mean, we're really disturbed, Ben. What does your research show on what's happening with justice and the FBI, especially on this January 6th thing? I mean, FBI looks like it's possibly involved in it. They were now involved with the Whitmer thing, and that's kind of going awry. I mean, we're in a really dangerous place. What are you feeling or hearing about what's happening legally with just January 6th?
Well, obviously, the sort of resources that the government is devoting to prosecuting everybody from January 6th, while I'm perfectly fine with people who violate the law going to jail.
Me too.
There is obviously a wide disparity between the resources devoted by the federal government to prosecuting people on January 6th and the complete willingness of pretty much everybody to just shrug and in fact, cheer. Rioters last year doing $5 billion in damage, $2 billion in insured damage to major cities around the country. I mean, that disparity is pretty obvious and wide. As far as sort of the January 6th of it all, I'll be honest with you, I haven't particularly followed the sort of theorizing about the FBI and its involvement with January 6th, because frankly, it seems like there's pretty good evidence a lot of these people wanted to go in and do something stupid, petty, foolish, and criminal.
Right.
But the bigger problem with January 6th is to me, not the quote-unquote FBI involvement. I think we already know that there are problems with the FBI from the entire Mueller investigation. The big problem to me with January 6th is the attempt by the left to use January 6th as the tool to silence everybody, right? If you voted for Trump, you're in favor of January 6th, which means you're dangerous, which means that really we should be taking a second look at you. January 6th was such a breach of democracy that you must continue to give us unalloyed power at the federal level in order to stop things like January 6th from happening ever again. And the continual focus by the Democrats on January 6th, the blowing of it out of all proportion, treating it as though it was the single worst thing to happen in modern American history, when in reality, if security does its job, January 6th never happens in the way that it happens, right? The big failure there is what the Senate Intelligence Committee said it was, which was a complete failure of all of the apparatuses of law enforcement to stop people from invading the Capitol in the first place. In reality, it was several hundred people who broke into a building. Yes, many of them intent on doing grave harm, and they should go to jail for that.
Yeah.
But the notion that it was like an insurrection about to overthrow the American government and thus give us unalloyed power is insane. I mean, it was not about to overthrow the American government. The place was cleared within 2 hours. The Congress, led, by the way, by Mike Pence, Trump's vice president, and Mitch McConnell in the Senate, led the certification of the election. So, like, at what point was American democracy truly in danger? That's why when you hear these stories about top generals at the Pentagon saying things like, well, it was the Reichstag fire and this is all Hitler. It's like, read a book. And for goodness sake, read a book. Or you're just being dishonest.
Ben Shapiro, who I have tremendous respect for. I met a kid. He was probably 12 or 13, I think. Met him backstage at CPAC, and I looked at him and I was talking to him, and I said to him, "You remind me of Ben Shapiro. When he was your age, you were. When did you go to college? Like."
I was 16, but if you said that to that kid, I was 16. That kid had some real hard teenage years ahead of him.
Yeah, he does. But you've been a great force. We have about a minute here, Ben. 2 minutes. Tell me the thing that you're most concerned about, and the thing that we can actually make an impact on.
So right now, the thing that I'm most concerned about is the wokeification of corporations, the use of business to cram down particular viewpoints on the rest of the American public inside your business place, threatening you with firing if you don't post the proper black square or the proper gay pride message, like that kind of stuff. If that continues, then we are going to completely bifurcate as a country, and it is an area where we can successfully push back. In the same way that a lot of people have pushed back in the educational sphere, all it really requires is for you to politically unionize with some of your friends, because it really is like a very core group of radical leftists who renormalize these institutions by taking advantage of people not wanting to cause controversy or have HR issues. And so if you can be loud and proud on the other side and outnumber those folks, then you really can get your institution to just go back to kind of weapons down, no politics in the workplace, which would be, I think, the best available outcome there.
Any doubt in your mind that the giant corporations are using the Great Reset, or headed that way, and they're using the Marxists as fuel, that they'll eat the Marxists when all is said and done?
I think that they think they'll eat the Marxists, but we'll find out. I mean, it'll be a pitched battle. A lot of the corporations thought, that in the early days of the Russian Revolution, that things would end up well for them. They didn't. A lot of the corporations thought in the early days of the Nazis that things would end up great for them. Not so much. So it turns out that when you get in bed with the government and with people who love government, you shouldn't be surprised when you get screwed. So I think a lot of these people think they're in control, but they are not, I think.
Ben Shapiro, a great work at the Daily Wire. Give Jeremy and everybody my best. Thank you for all of the years of service that you've done and what you're working on now to keep us and the rest of the world free. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to Daily Wire. thedailywire.com. All right, so summer has arrived, and with it comes all of those amazing summer holidays. And with things finally starting to return to normal in this country, I'll bet you're looking to spend those holidays with friends and family, cooking up some good food in the backyard while the kids go running and screaming around the yard. Let me take your grilling game and knock it up one level. If you haven't already, I want you to go online and check out RecTech. It grills, it smokes, it even bakes, and it does it with smart grill technology, which means that it maintains perfect temperature the whole time. And that means you don't burn anything like I have time or two or every time. Until I got a RecTech. It's sleek, it's sturdy. The thing is built out of solid stainless steel. It's a tank. It'll be the last grill you buy. A/B compare the RecTech to the competition. You'll see what I'm talking about. RecTeq.com. That's RecTech.com. RecTeq.com. This is the best of the Glenn Beck program. I want to talk to you a little bit about misinformation and the problems that we have here in America. And it's really not complex. It's really not. Why are we having these problems? Why are we seeing things like the numbers of people who don't believe that we walked on the moon suddenly double. Why is that happening? Why is it that people don't believe in institutions? Is it propaganda? Has it been misinformation? Is it coming from the right? Is it coming from the left? Is it intentional or is it an accident? Well, we've been heading down this road for a long time because people didn't know who to trust, but there wasn't a way to actually go and get information elsewhere. The internet has changed absolutely everything. And so now we can get different information. We can get real information and we can get bogus information. And when the officials are not in line with the American people, and that doesn't mean that we don't agree or we don't ever disagree. What it means is when people hear an excuse, for instance, you're going to the store and you're paying 11% more for milk than you were just a couple of months ago. And then you hear the president say, there is no inflation. You know that's not true. When somebody says to you gives a reason or excuse and it just doesn't feel right, it's like, that's not true. You're more susceptible to going out and hearing something that might be an absolute lie, but it fits the scenario. And so you lose the trust of all of the institutions because you figure out they're lying to you now, and they've been probably lying to you for a long time, which opens up all of the doors of, now I don't believe we went to the moon. All the crazy stuff. There's a good number of people now all over the world that believe that chips are inside of the vaccine. Absolutely not true. However, with all of the other actions that have been done by the elites in our world, it's gaining credibility because you don't know if you can trust them. I would never think that the FBI had infiltrated groups and had been setting them up for a political agenda. For instance, the Whitmer kidnapping. It appears as though that wasn't something that they stopped. It was something that they fomented and stopped. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know how much of it is true because who do you trust to give you that news? Do you trust the FBI? Never in my life did I not think that I would trust the FBI. I don't trust the FBI now. Why? Well, because it doesn't seem like they ever get punished for the things that they're doing. For instance, lying to a FISA court. This is one of the worst things that you can possibly do. One guy changes a report, actually physically changes the situation on what they're presenting to the court and saying, this is why you should give us access to everything, because he is not part of us. He's never worked for us. He's never done any of these things, when the exact opposite was true. And the FBI went in and changed the documents to fit their narrative. Once you do that on something that you're going after a president of the United States, I have a hard time believing you wouldn't do that to me. I mean, if they did it and got away with it with somebody like the president of the United States, do you think they give a flying crap about you? Now, that doesn't mean that the FBI is bad. I believe that the vast majority of the FBI agents are good. But what's happening at the upper end is what's trouble. Do you believe? Let me play cut one here. This is Psaki clarifying that Facebook, the post, the tagging, and what they're really doing. I want you to listen to this.
First of all, we've not asked Facebook to block any individual posts. The way this works is that there are trends that are out there on social media platforms. You're aware of them. We're aware of them. Anyone in the public can be aware of them. There's also data that we look at that many media platforms, like many of you, also look at data in terms of trends.
Stop. So what are they saying here? They are saying that they're not interfering with Facebook. They are just saying, Facebook, you should take action against anybody who is providing you with misinformation. And that's it. Do you believe that? I don't, but I have nothing to back it up. But I don't believe that. And if you think that makes me a radical, let me reverse the scenario. If Donald Trump said exactly the same thing, do you think the other side would believe it? See, the problem is we're losing faith in our institutions, but then everything has become politicized that the exact same thing can be done by one president and half the country thinks it's okay and the other half thinks they should go to jail for it. And then the D is switched to an R or vice versa. And all of a sudden, the entire population switches because we're not talking about principles anymore. All we're talking about is politics. We've lost the trust in anything but a political letter, R or D. That is extraordinarily dangerous. And how is this happening? You know, all I heard about for the last 6 years is what a liar Donald Trump is. Okay. All right. Let's accept that that's true. Just accept that all of that is true. Well, let me give you some examples of the other side and Joe Biden. Why are we having problems right now with thinking that Nazis are coming to get us? Well, the misinformation about neo-Nazis. Biden launched his presidential campaign in April 2019 by claiming that President Donald Trump had referred to the neo-Nazis and white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia as very fine people. We know that's not true. We know it's not true. We have the audio tape of what he said. He was not saying the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists. In fact, he said those were bad people. But there were also other very fine people who felt things were being changed and they were standing and going for that reason. And you can't put all of them into the same bucket. Misinformation. Did the media further that? Did social media further that? Or did they flag it and say, this isn't true? The only way anyone will have credibility is when they say, this was a lie, this wasn't true, and call out their own side. It's why we do it. And we get a lot of heat from people who are just, and I understand it. I really do understand it. We're in a situation where it's literally becoming life and death. It's literally freedom or slavery. And so you don't want anything to hurt your side, but we cannot be on the side of anything but truth. Only those who have some credibility will be able to lead in the future. And those people who have credibility are the ones who will just tell you the truth and say, you know what, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't make people happy, but we were wrong about this. But they didn't do that. The misinformation about the coronavirus vaccine. Can we please play, let's see, is it cut one? I think it's cut one on Biden and Kamala Harris talking about the vaccine prior to the election.
So let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
If and when the vaccine comes. And it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done. When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? Who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up. They now say it's okay. And the question of whether it's real when it's there, that requires enormous transparency. You got to make all of it available to other experts across the nation so they can look and see. So there's consensus, this is a safe vaccine. If the president announced tomorrow we have a vaccine, would you take it? Only if it was completely transparent that other experts in the country could look at it. Only if we knew all of what went into it. If Donald Trump can't give answers and the administration can't give answers to these three questions, the American people should not have confidence.
But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Okay, who is the anti-vaxxer here?
That's incredible. That's an incredible montage.
That's unbelievable. I asked the staff we could have more. I asked the staff yesterday, can you just put together the montage of these guys saying, I'm not going to take the vaccine, and calling into question. Now, why did they do that? They only did that to play on people's fears and hype it up, that you can't trust it. Now, there may be reasons you can't trust the vaccine. It's completely new, a completely new way of making vaccines. It was rushed, but it seems to be safe. I mean, it's the biggest trial in human history, and we are just trying it on people, but we were in a situation where we needed the vaccine, and it seems to be working. It seems to be good. Now they are coming after people who have these questions when they're not being transparent. They are not saying to people, just look at it. Just look at it and you decide. And let's have a debate. There is no debate. There is no debate. They're telling us, now think of how evil this is. They're telling the American people that is the misinformation from the right, and people like me who say, if you want to take the vaccine, take the vaccine. I think it's probably okay. I don't know, and nobody will know for 10 years, but I don't think there's any chips in it or anything else. So take it, especially if you're vulnerable. They say that is dangerous misinformation, and it's coming from the political right. Well, when you find out that the people who are not getting vaccinated are African Americans and Hispanics, that's where the lion's share is. When you hear that, are Hispanics and African Americans, are they suddenly listening to the Daily Wire and to Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro? I don't think so. I don't think so. Of course, the New York Times, they would say that we're all white people and we're all conservatives. So how is that? Because it's not about the vaccine. It's not about saving lives. It's about politics. Misinformation. So the White House says they have to stop misinformation, and they're starting with the coronavirus. And they are partnering, their own documentation says they are partnering with social media to stop misinformation. Okay, so what happens, the misinformation about police officers? What happens about all the misinformation about what was happening with Antifa and the riots? As they were attacking a federal courthouse in Portland and calling for the end of the United States of America. Biden said that the feds were brutally attacking peaceful protesters. Why don't we trust the media? Why don't we trust and just line up and do whatever we're told to do? Because there are too many lies. And almost everything that is happening in our world today is happening because the government has violated the Bill of Rights and they have lied and caused these problems. How about the misinformation about China's threat to the U.S.? Biden says they're not a threat. During the campaign, they're not a threat. Trump banning was hysterical xenophobia when you couldn't go to China. How does he have any credibility on China now? The misinformation on the military debts, the misinformation about the economic reopenings, the misinformation about Trump and Lafayette Square, the Hunter Biden laptop. That wasn't misinformation. These are out and out lies that were happening. And is anyone talking about banning those things? Na, 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 na.